All right, for those that are joining us, bear with us 1-2 minutes. We are getting the live stream up on YouTube so that we can get this AMA started. For those of you that are joining us on Zoom, welcome. The live stream should just be kicking off now. All right, great. All right, we'll give so 1 more minute or so folks can get in. I'm like looking at a lot of screens here to make sure we're catching everything. So. Okay, folks, we should be live on YouTube. Welcome. Welcome. I know that we have quite a few people turning on the YouTube channel. Got some folks turning in on Zoom. Welcome. We're excited to be here and connect with you guys. It's been some time. We are, like I said, we're streaming through YouTube. We're also going to, as an FYI, this will be available via Medium and via webinar recap via Zoom. So you'll be able to download and see it. We'll see about uploading the stream to the YouTube page itself, so you guys will have access. But welcome, everyone. We're about to get started. I know the CMs are in the chat. We have quite a few submitted questions that you guys submitted both through the Google Forms and through email. So we're going to basically get through those. We're going to start with essentially, I'll structure this a little bit for everyone. And I'll also start talking a little bit slower because I tend to go fast. I am currently in New York in the wee hours of the morning. Sang is in Seoul. So we are kind of covering coast to coast over here. And the way we'll structure this AMA is we'll start by giving you guys some key updates, what's been going on Konstellation, how we're doing with the Konstellation network build, where we are with phase 2 of testnet, all sorts of details on updates of the build. We'll give you some other updates on where we're going and what we see the vision of Konstellation to be, so that you guys can kind of walk with us through this path of how we're thinking about things and how we're working through development on Konstellation, where we're really focusing on building the ecosystem for Dark. So all you Dark token holders can get excited about, the use cases that we'll be building for that will help create this ecosystem for Dark. So we'll start off with some updates, and then the back half, we will go through the questions that we've received thus far, and we'll also be monitoring the chats for any additional questions that come through. So feel free to ping there. Folks who are in Zoom, you can also feel free to send through questions in that manner in the chat. We'll kind of keep an eye on everything we can. To anything we miss, particularly for our Korean community folks, we are going to get this recapped. We're going to take all your questions from the chat and the questions we've answered here, and we're going to have it translated in Korean language and uploaded onto our Naver page, so you guys can be sure you don't miss anything. Yeah, so everything total will probably run about 30-45 minutes. It will probably go a bit longer. So we hope folks continue to tune in, and we'll just get started. So Sang, I'll kick it to you to kind of get us started on giving some of the updates and highlights of where we're at right now, with kind of what we wrapped up in 2020 and how we're approaching 2021 right now. And you're on mute.
Okay, thanks so much. Hello, everyone from the Konstellation community. Really glad to be here with you today. As Tasha mentioned, I think, we have a lot of questions that we probably want to go through. If any we missed during this session, we'll try to work through it so that we have it ready on the Medium post as well. But I think, like Tasha mentioned, I think the recap of 2020 and looking into 2021 is it's probably critical right now. I think for everybody, the world has become a very different place in 2020. I think from our development perspective as well, we had to rejigger their team. We became fully remote as well from a development standpoint. While we did have a geographic kind of footprint before, we did have the leisure of either traveling for work or being able to sit with our teams at least a couple of times a year. And that became obviously pretty impossible, which means we've translated ourselves into a fully remote basis. That was not without its own challenges, but it also had new opportunities. The challenges being particularly in, I think, development of something as innovative as blockchain, it can run into some obstacles with communication. What we've been able to do for the latter half of 2020 is really improve those processes, add some new folks to the team, as well as reorganize our development verticals so that it helped us prioritize, network over features, over dApps that we're building on the ecosystem that ultimately accrue to value for dark token holders. So I think organizing our development process has been very, very helpful. In terms of opportunities, what I think has changed for us toward the latter half of 2020 and going into 2021 as well, was that because we went fully remote, we were able to start sourcing talent truly from a global talent pool. I think, just anecdotally, we probably had some sort of brain constraints as to where our physical offices and our locations were previously, and we, kind of focused on hiring human capital from those areas and from those regions. I think in a post-COVID environment, that became completely unnecessary, which means that allowed us to source both business development as well as technical development staff from all around the world. And, we're continuing to do so. So from the staffing perspective, we are heavily focused on Golang and Rust. So if anybody from the community wants to contribute from a development side, or if they know of anybody that can, provide to us as a referral, that would be amazing. That would be very, very helpful. Because we are looking for.
We'll take referrals via Telegram. We'll take referrals during info@konstellation.tech. Send it through to us.
Sure, for sure. So like I said, it's Golang because, we are working on Cosmos SDK, and Rust, which is our kind of smart contract module. But I'll get into the specifics of where we're kind of in the development toward the latter half of me talking right now. That shift in and of itself, probably not everybody here may be directly aware of it. But, during our journey, we did explore various different layer ones. And because we are focused on financial services as well as asset management, from a technology perspective, we are leaning toward whichever one provides the most inter-blockchain connectivity and no congestion. So that's where we're really looking. So there were I think there was a big push in the industry, which drove towards smart contracts, which I think is fantastic. I think a lot of the DeFi solutions, which we'll kind of talk about and allude to later on as well, that is that came about because of Ethereum and its smart contracts. What we really looked toward was a future where financial services and asset management was going to be relatively technology agnostic. Capital will flow to where it's more efficient, to where it's cheaper. And that just naturally tends to happen in financial services. So we thought the selection of a chain that is most conducive to be able to connect with other chains would be the most important, which is why we chose and we still believe in the Cosmos SDK system. Having said that, we are still examining other layers which we can integrate with if they are able to provide a better solution or some type of better dApp that we will need to provide that holistic asset, decentralized asset management experience directly on Konstellation Network. And I think that's the one thing that Cosmos has provided above all, including kind of inter-blockchain connectivity. So having said that, I'll kind of move on to the second phase, which is where we are. in terms of Konstellation Network. So, the community has been with us the whole time. We're very, very close. So I think that's a piece of good news that we do have for you guys, which is that we are in testnet phase 2. Some of you guys saw our call for validators, which was overwhelming. We got an overwhelming response, but we did have to limit it because the validators do have to be with us during the genesis process of the mainnet. So generation of the first block on mainnet does have to be with these validators. So we were looking for validators that could be with us for the long haul. So while we received hundreds of applications on the validator side, we were able to select a handful that are still working through us with the tasks and debugging on the Konstellation Network. The second phase that we are working on, which is also kind of being timed with the launch of mainnet, is integration with smart contracts. So now I'm going to talk about that during the product roadmap kind of short run through that I'll do for the community here. But there are 2 modules that we are focusing on right now, including to the launch of the network itself, both of which are going to be very supportive in the DeFi applications and the dark use cases that we are building toward on a Konstellation Network in partnership with VegaX as well. Once again, another point that it's a Q&A that we received as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. The other update that we have is on Dark Wallet. So that's been our primary interface. This is where Dark token holders are, holding their Dark 24Bs. We've also are working on the release of the next version, which is 4.4.0. The next version to support Ethereum as a chain on the protocol level, as well as a Dark ERC20 version. This we thought would be a much smoother or earlier process, but the primary reason for this is the similar reason to what we had for choosing Cosmos as our chain, which is the importance of inter-blockchain operability. The ability to work across chains, to the ability to have flexibility, even for the native token to be able to seamlessly migrate between chains, we think is important. And the first step for that is obviously having Ethereum, which is the kind of the forefather, if you will, of smart contracts integrated with our network as well via token. Additionally, we think it will help with different liquidity choices, different optionalities in DeFi solutions by having an ERC20 version currently. Like we said, I think the future holds something where it's more technology agnostic, but having said that, the vast majority of DeFi solutions and DeFi developers have been working on Solidity and the Ethereum chain. So having that flexibility, I think, is going to be helpful. We have slightly delayed this push on the wallet. I think for a reason that everyone's probably aware of. Ethereum is facing heavy congestion with regards to the fees. So that is something we're continuously observing. We've seen issues on Binance as well right now on a lot of the major exchanges because of this congestion. So we are looking into monitoring that to see when the situation can be improved or if there are other solutions that we can present that will allow the swap. But that is something that we're continuously monitoring with regards to the Ethereum congestion and fee issues. So definitely stay posted on that. And if folks, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to highlight that, and because of the fees and I guess the uncertainty of how, some of those solutions are going to come about and what those gas fees are going to look like in the future, we do have limits on, the ability to swap to that token, to the Dark ERC20 when that functionality is live. So it's important that when we push the update, we'll definitely give you guys updates and everything through Medium that walks you through the features. But what's important is that you guys take a look at the FAQs and you understand what those parameters are, and of course also understanding that we're doing it to make sure that we can control essentially the cost of those fees at that time. So yeah, Sang, go ahead.
Yeah, awesome. So I think that brings me to my next points, which are heavily related to kind of a lot of the features that I was talking about, a lot of the work that the team has been working hard on. And I think the first quarter is showing that coming to fruition in much more detail. If you guys can see my screen right now with regards to our first quarter product roadmap, the top component is talking about network heavy work that we have accomplished or are accomplishing. A lot of this work, as you'll see here, is with regards to the libraries for smart contract support. This is why we're also looking for Rust developers, given that the modules for smart contracts on Cosmos SDK are being built in the Rust language. So once again, as we've iterated in the beginning, if you guys have any referrals, or if you are personally a Rust expert, please reach out, because I think that will definitely help accelerate our development right now. But having said that, we are still on track for the first rollouts of that smart contract this quarter, so the end of March. And what are we building for those smart contracts? That's probably the main question. We are building a DeFi solution that is going to provide direct value for the Dark token, which will allow the creation of a stable coin based on Dark. So staking to create a stable coin, and swaps into synthetic assets. So the creation of other investment vehicles that you will be able to use Dark to invest into. So that is our first quarter product roadmap. We do have a lot more kind of exciting asset management ideas that we want to roll out, but this is also tied to our development speed. We're actively hiring Rust. I can't say that enough. We are hiring Rust. We're hiring ourselves. But also from the community, we're calling on you for that support as well. If you know of any folks that can help us out. And the other things that we are working on are the direct integrations with some of our Vega X products. So some of these index-based and asset management products will also be tied to the Dark token. So that is coming this quarter, next quarter, where you're able to use Dark in order to invest into these underlying different investment products. So stay posted on those. With that, I will pass it over to Natasha to talk about our next phases.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we are revamping and, really focusing on the tech build, we're also doubling down on rebuilding our community. And what does that mean? That means that we need to get some new energy and new folks that are interested in Dark and the ecosystem that we're building with Dark, with both Konstellation and how that feeds into Vega X. And we need to build that community in a better way. So what we're essentially doing is we are hiring, and we have hired new community managers, and we're also working specifically to develop our communities through our Korean channels. So we have hired a team that is working specifically, and I know a lot of the folks in the Korean community chat are probably happy that there's someone there to man it a bit more. And we're working with a firm called UBB on those activities. So you guys are going to start to see more folks enter the chat, a lot of people asking more questions, hopefully, and we're hoping that everyone in the community will continue to rally and support us as we continue to release some of these new features that Sang mentioned with both Dark Wallet and how we're working to activate the full ecosystem for Dark as a token. So some of the things that we have planned, some of the folks that are actually in what we had, the former community council, we are going to re-release that, and that's going to be essentially a key council of people that you have to meet certain requirements, specifically in terms of your Dark token holdings, because that will allow us to, one, know that you're directly tied to the development of the company and the network, and then it will give those members a bit more direct access to Sang and I via some private chats where we can share some more updates in real time, and as we get that out to the community a bit more. So we're working on that, and that will be released shortly. We'll have the parameters for that release, and it'll essentially be a Google form where anyone in the community can submit and enter their details. If you meet the criteria, you'll be invited to join the group. So that is going to be a key brain trust, essentially, that we're going to look to as we start to figure out a bit more details of like a rollout for the network. So keep an eye out for that. We're also going to be working with more official AMA organizers for the next AMA. As you guys are probably aware, I believe it's April 24th or so, I think. Don't quote me, but it's April, late April, is our next AMA. And we're going to work with an official kind of AMA group so that we can essentially track more people, and then you guys can stop hearing us talk as much and get a bit more folks and other questions from outside of the community that we can answer. So that'll come up in April. And then essentially what you guys are going to see a bit more is a lot of doubling down on making sure that we can connect and activate with our Korean community. As Sang mentioned, given the remote nature of COVID and how we've had to readjust with offices, or closing down offices rather, for employees and employee health, we are increasing our team and our headcount in Korea. So as we double down on that, we'll be also making sure we expand and support the community in Korean language and in Korea directly. So you'll be seeing more of that come through the pipeline. And you'll hopefully start seeing more activations of what we are calling ourselves as the Dark Knight Army, which essentially is all of you, and how we all work together to really push and really, wave the flag of Konstellation and have everyone get excited about what we're building and why we're building it, and understanding the long-term nature of how we're building and why we're being purposeful in the build. So we're grateful that we've had the community support thus far, and we're looking forward to everyone staying connected and supportive and spreading the word about Dark and Konstellation as we continue to rally and build our community.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, as Tasha mentioned, I don't think, we were definitely focusing on Korea. We're doubling down. But, we're looking at other regions as well that are becoming more active in crypto. So definitely keep posted on that. And if you have specific regions or markets that you think are very healthy right now, and it's a market that we should be entering, we'll definitely open to that discussion as well. And one other kind of key takeaway here is that, as you all know, we're in a similar boat, I guess, if you will. So the community support is definitely important. I understand that sometimes there's a bit of angst. Sometimes things may get a little bit frustrating, but we are working really, really hard around the clock to both support the network as well as develop the right tools to accrue value for Dark. It may be a bit longer term than people are used to, but like I said in the product roadmap rollout, we're close to very tangible things that I think you'll be very excited to see. So I think having that continual support from our existing community, I think is going to go a very, very long way, because if we want to continue to grow the value of the network, newcomers also have to be very excited. So, having a general, it's not to say, people shouldn't be constructive. That's not what I mean to say. What I mean to say is that, the general theme of constructive criticism versus just frustration, I think, those are clear delineations. And while we do appreciate that sometimes things get a little bit hairy at times, that we hope that the community will continue to support, because that's another tool we have in our arsenal, right? You guys or the Dark Knights, as Tasha mentioned, are it's in our toolbox, right? That's another marketing / communication tool that we do have, which is you guys. So we definitely appreciate your continued support on all the channels, right? So not just looking for a team member here, but being able to support what we're doing, I think is going to be super critical. This kind of brings me, I think, to the question that is on everyone's mind right now. Top question is, when exchange listing date? You guys have heard this before. We're working on it. We're pretty close. I think you guys can probably guess who we are targeting, given that we have recently doubled down on the Korean community base. So we're basically talking to everyone on the ground here at various stages of the listing. Exchanges have changed their processes as well over the last year, over the last 2 months of bull run. So that is something to keep in mind, but that is something that we are very close to doing. It's also kind of tied to the DeFi solutions that we mentioned before. That will require a certain level of liquidity in order for it to be valuable. Given that we can't really control centralized exchanges listing time, even though we push them forward, we don't want to say that we've completely tabled DEXs, right? I think a lot of different decentralized exchanges have become very, very liquid. They've become very, very large. And given that we have a 24B or Binance chain-based token, as well as an ERC20, I think those are definitely options that we can keep open. And it will require, obviously, that we provide liquidity in the beginning to seed those things on the DEXs. But our primary focus is really on the Korean exchange market. And those are the folks that we are having conversations with. We, once again, don't have a firm date right now, but we will keep you posted. They are all kind of in tandem or in application phase right now, so we are in due diligence. So if we do have any good news on specific dates, specific dates, I guess, finalized going public dates, we'll keep everyone here posted. I think the other question that we do have, some questions that we have around our team. We have 12 people working full time on the network right now, split between development and network development. As I mentioned earlier on, we are looking to beef up our blockchain development arm. Referrals are always welcome on that side. Going forward into the first half of this year, that's really where we're going to be focusing. If apart from the marketing and community management side of things, that's where we're going to be focusing most of our attention, which is the development, so we can accelerate a lot of these DeFi ideas that we do have that we believe are really unique. But then we could roll them out across different networks as well, right? So this Rust development, like I mentioned, is the primary module for smart contracts. But in reality, there are other modules that we have to build that need to exist so that we can talk to other networks. Thankfully for Cosmos, they've just released Stargate, which allows us to do that a little bit easier. But having said that, it's still development work. So that's where we're going to be focusing on increasing our team. So on Constellation mainnet, we are looking toward the end of the first quarter in terms of the release. Right now, we are in heavy testing phase, but the rollout of the mainnet is also going to be tied to the module for the smart contract. So in Cosmos SDK, smart contracts are not native to the chain. So basically what we have to do is we have to create, a piece of code that we latch on to the network when it goes live. If we do that after we roll out mainnet, it may run into issues that we may have to roll back if it's buggy. So we're building that on testnet, but we are looking at the end of the first quarter for the Constellation mainnet rollout, pending all testing in QA. So that is kind of taken with a grain of salt, but that is our target internally for being able to roll out mainnet. I think another big question that we do have from folks is tied also with the idea of Konstellation and Vega X. And that's a concept that we've been working on for about a year now. And Vega X is a DApp company for Constellation Network. Right now, we're working on centralized asset management solutions that use cryptocurrency. So like a Bitcoin index product and Ethereum index product. Having said that, our goal is to directly integrate the rollout of these products or even the creation of these products to Dark Token, including on stablecoin, including on the governance side. So decentralizing governance of indexes and asset management products. So that is on our roadmap, but Vega X will create it directly to do that. A finite and a consumable use case for Dark that is not just utility or fees, right? So the ability to actually participate in the governance of asset management products, as well as using the tokens to be able to invest into the products is why we created Vega X. And like I mentioned before, right now we're really working on more traditional asset management products in the space. And the reason for this is because we have a thesis about bringing non-crypto investors into crypto, which is it has to be as easy as possible. I think for our community here and a lot of folks in blockchain, everything seems like it's a very kind of low-hanging fruit, or things are very easy to access. But if you actually talk to a regular investor that has never interacted with anything in cryptocurrency, I think blockchain investment still represents a hurdle that's very, very difficult to get over. So the tools that we're developing in Vega X is to try to lower that barrier a bit. But at the same time, once we get them on the inside of the fence, introduce them to the Dark token and to the Dark ecosystem, but in a much easier way, in a much more efficient way, which is why we created Vega X. So I think that's kind of a long-winded way of saying to one of the questions, as Dark token holders, will we be able to use Dark and to invest into Vega X strategies? Yes, absolutely. We are working on specific DeFi solutions, and that is that smart contract module that I was talking about before, to provide synthetic exposure through Dark. So that's definitely on the roadmap for the first quarter. Another question that I think is kind of related is, DeFi is a growing topic within crypto right now. How are you on track to deploy revenue generating solutions while the hype is still present? That's exactly what I was just talking about for the solutions that we're building at Vega X. Direct synthetic assets, a unique mechanism, which we'll also release on Medium and to the community, a unique stabilization mechanism for stablecoin generation using Dark. So to create a currency that you invest in, you'll collateralize with Dark, and then invest into the synthetic assets. That's directly tied to, I think, the revenue generating products or the DeFi solutions that folks are asking about in this question. And at the same time, we're actually looking for a lot of different partnerships as well. And what I mean by that is because a lot of different people are developing really innovative ways for people to invest, not just structures or products, but really different ways that we haven't really thought about as an investing activity or a service. And we've been talking to folks that offer staking as a service or yield generation. And the reason I think a lot of these products exist is because DeFi is still relatively hard to access for most people. It's generally pretty so we are looking for a lot of different partnerships that offer these types of solutions. So if folks in the community have ideas on other DeFi players that we should be talking to, we're definitely open ears. We've been talking to folks at Babylon Finance. We're going to be talking to Hummingbot, which is another major player in the market making space. So I think there's a lot of different things to be had in order to build the DeFi ecosystem. Like, it doesn't happen in a vacuum, which is something that we will focus on for the first half of this year. We have another question. How did COVID affect development plans? I think that's an interesting question. I think I kind of addressed it at the beginning of the AMA. I think it affected everybody's plans, not just our development plans, but given that there was some friction in the beginning, which tied to different things. One was, yes, it's hard to go full remote when you're not used to doing that. Even if you have a global team, each location in the globe went fully remote in and of itself, right? So now you feel even 1 degree removed when you're thousands of miles away at a home working in a vacuum. I think that was one thing. We've worked through that. Our new digital processes are fantastic. And we're still learning every day, right? How do we create the appropriate cultures? How do we create the team camaraderie? So we're still working through that kind of every day, but I think everybody is at this point. In terms of, I think, did it affect our development plans? I don't think it affected our development plans. I think more pro than con it created a lot more opportunities, right? So I think one thing that happened in the space, which we're also benefiting from, is that blockchain and Bitcoin adoption and innovation has accelerated at a speed that we haven't seen before. And some people joke it's because people were stuck at home. But at the end of the day, I think the global pandemic, as well as what we're seeing with a lot of central banks, with a lot of different governments and how they're trying to deal with the pandemic, which effectively is printing money, has created the circumstance where it's so important for DeFi and decentralized assets to exist. And I think one of the quintessential stories that we see in the industry was GameStop. Ironically, the action of what they did self-perpetuated the need for DeFi, right? Closing people out because they didn't like the price, or maybe this is all conspiracy, maybe, but because their investors or their stakeholders were losing a ton of money, so they didn't let anybody else sell. And the fact that a community was able to rally around to create that kind of effect without any official organization, if you will, really speaks to the power of community, which is why another reason that we're calling on our community as well, to be able to rally behind the Konstellation Network and the work that we're doing in the DeFi space, right? So, one thing I do kind of want as a key takeaway is that DeFi is a hot new word, but it's a space that we've been in as a company for over 6 years. We started our journey from traditional finance because we thought it was too centralized, because there was a ton of problems with investors all around the world accessing different investments, and that was our dark matter journey. So we've seen this from the ground up. Right now, the kind of technology solutions for yield, et cetera, I think they're great, but there's still a ton of work to be done. But I do want everyone here to know that we were DeFi before it was DeFi. We were working in the space because it was absolutely critical, and nobody was listening to us at the time. Yeah. But it was absolutely critical to be done, and we're focusing on a mega space. Lending is also huge, but asset management is massive. It's where people park most of their cash. It's where people leave cash until they retire, right? So that's another thing that we're also tackling, which is how do we create a framework of DeFi where people feel so comfortable they can leave the capital in there for decades at a time, right? That's what we're working on as a problem. Right now, a lot of programmers, a lot of traders can make a ton of money in DeFi, and I think that's great because that's moving us in the right direction. But I do want to reiterate our vision of what we're trying to create for the broader industry. And with that, yeah,
to double down on your point there, saying, I mean, and there are a lot of cross-functional things that need to happen across all industries for a lot of these things to be developed. And I think the amazing thing about the industry right now, in terms of like fintech, and we're looking at blockchain for fintech, for financial services, is that this is a time where everybody's actually paying attention to what's being built, and people are being a bit more thoughtful about how they're building. And we'd like to think that that's exactly how we're taking that approach, and making sure that we're really taking the learnings that we've been able to develop from building DeFi before it was really a DeFi thing, through online platform building and really creating global connectivity, and taking that to next generation solutions with how Konstellation's network is actually going to be able to solve a lot of these problems and create a lot of the efficiencies, utilizing the network and the nodes, and making sure that we are connecting the right stakeholders that are a part of this network to help us build, and with the whole thought of long term, right? Because we're firm believers that you need to be a part of the infancy in order to grow with the evolution and be a part of the market in its maturity. And that's exactly what we're doing. And I'm very confident, we're both very confident that we've got the right team in place and we're building accordingly. Now we need to get some more specific developers on some of these action items that we have, and we're hoping to be able to continue execute across our roadmap.
So I think we covered most of the questions that we did receive.
Yeah, let me do a quick sweep and see if there's anything else. I think we've got most questions in.
Okay.
We'll keep everyone updated on anything exchange related. Let me just check one more channel, see do we have anything else coming in. I think we got through everything that was submitted. Okay, so we are ready. We have about 4 minutes or so left. So in terms of next steps and what we're going to do. So you guys saw during this call the first glimpse of our product roadmap. We are going to release that so that you can actually see it without the YouTube screen or the Zoom screen. So we're going to get that polished up and re-release that through our Medium. We'll also release it through our Naver for our Korean community members, so you guys can take a closer look. And that will have some more details around dark wallet releases, along with mainnet testnet phase 2 timeframes, along with the release and launch of mainnet. So we'll have those there. And then as that shifts and develops, we'll be sure to update you guys on any changes there. The other thing coming out of this session will be recaps of the AMA. So we'll get it both in Korean language and in English. You will be able to access this recording via Zoom, via the links that we'll share out, so you can kind of do on-demand play. And it should probably be available on our YouTube. We'll double check that, so you'll be able to see that. And then if you guys have any additional questions, keep connecting with us on Telegram and through info@konstellation.tech. On our Telegram channel, you'll see in our pinned post that we have a Google form where you can submit questions at any time fairly easily. Management takes a look at that on a weekly basis, and we get back to you there on answers if you guys ask anything new on a weekly basis. So take a look at that, and you can see the responses as community members. And we will do our best to continue to keep you guys updated on a consistent level and make sure that you guys are aware of any updates that we have coming down the pipeline. As I mentioned, it looks like April 28th, 5 p.m. Korea time is going to be our next AMA. So you'll see updates from us before then through the chat and through our channels. But the next time that we'll talk to you on our video AMA presence will be in April 28th, 5 p.m. KT. Anything else you want to add there, Sang, before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I think that, yeah, the key takeaway was, I think there'll be other things before the next official AMA that are planned with other communities, like you mentioned before, with other AMA communities. So if folks are interested in dropping into those, I think those will be available prior to April. And also we may have ad hoc if there's other good news that we want to share with the community prior to that. But as you said, the next official scheduled one is April 28th, and we're looking forward to that as well.
Awesome. All right, great. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for attending, everybody on the playback, and we'll be sure to keep you guys updated. Thank you. Stay safe, everybody. Bye.
Stay safe.